and I've done um, Master of Arts in Education from Azim Premji University. I think it's very important for us to know that, every child is different, right? So every student has their own ability. So every student has their own ability and skill. So you can't really say that. Say, for example, if you take, I'm not sure if you have seen this image of, the examination where for all the animals and, probably a fish, you're asking them to climb a tree, right? That's the best example. I mean, how can you judge by asking them to climb a tree when actually a fish has the ability to swim, right? So it is the same logic that we're applying here. So when every child has their own ability, so when it comes to the chalk and talk method of, assessing, or the traditional method, you're only looking at a written form, and it's more about rote learning and memorization, I think, which is not going to be applicable in tomorrow's world, right? Because tomorrow's world is all about AI at the end of the day, right? So if you're looking at traditional form of assessment, I think you're not helping the child build anything in terms of skills and competencies. For us to build those competencies, I think it's very important for children to fail and learn, and to create those experiences for them to build those skills of resilience, empathy, say, for example, adaptability. I think it's important for them to know how to be adaptable in an unknown world tomorrow. So our traditional method of examination will only help them fetch grades and marks, probably,
Mm.
and not really help them to build for tomorrow's future. How we don't know how it's going to be like. At the end of the day, we call it a VUCA world. And when I say VUCA, it's volatility, it's uncertain. You don't know how tomorrow's, like COVID was very uncertain. If you look at the example of COVID, it was super, like, like VUCA. It just came to us,
Yeah.
right? And then complexity and ambiguity, I think. So to keeping in mind, I think the world tomorrow, I don't know, I mean, just tomorrow, when I say that, especially keeping in mind Gen Zs, I think it's definitely um not going to be a right way. For example, when I'm saying that, you're going to do it traditionally, I don't think that would be an appropriate way. And traditional method is clearly testing them on rote memorization. And I'm not saying that it's purely merely that, because we also do written tests in school. And it's about application, right? So if you've learned a concept of, say, for example, photosynthesis, how are you going to apply that is what is more important. So if you're going to test them on that, then definitely, of course, it's going to, but clearly rote memorization and just writing, mugging and writing is something that I'm totally against. I hope that answers the question
Yes, ma'am,
that you've asked.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Ma'am, because that's such an important point because exams often capture the memory, not mastery. And I love you,
right,
and I really love how you highlighted the broader dimensions of learning that usually get overlooked. So,
correct.
ma'am, with this, we are proceeding towards the second question. My second question is, what creative assessment methods have you seen or used that really helped capture a student's learning journey?
Okay, so I think coming to this question, right, it's very important to design our assessments. I think teaching and learning is one aspect, assessing kids is another aspect, right? So how are you going to design your assessments? And for us, at
Yeah.
least with respect to I teach in an IB school, and I'm in a leadership role at an IB school. So for us, it's very, very important to see how we design and, assess our kids actually. So
Hmm.
so what are the aspects that we're looking into? Say, for example, when we are doing an assessment, are we actually testing for the child's learning, or is it for the teachers to know where the child stands? So there are two, three things that we need to understand when we are assessing. Is it for the teachers, or is it for the students, or is it
Yes.
for both? Right. So there are lots of assessments, right? And what are the kind of creative assessments? I think it can be as simple as, asking a child to make a poster, asking a child to create something on her own, right? So if in case a child has learned the concept of design,
Hmm.
like, you can ask the class to just design a simple thing. Say, for example, it could be
Hmm.
like a designing a cup,
Hmm.
designing a classroom, like designing anything, an umbrella for that matter. Like,
Hmm.
I think it is important for us to think before we give them a task, and
Hmm.
that freedom and ability to choose what they want to do. So it could be anything from like creating a poster, like say for example it could be something like a group project can also be an assessment. Of course, you're looking at how they interact with peers, how they interact, how they collaborate. All these aspects actually count into the skills that we want them to develop for a tomorrow's unknown world, right? So if you're talking about just a written form of assessment, I think that's just one way. Like you can extend it to making e-portfolios, or say for example, like I think they can involve themselves in a project, come up with any sort of engagement with respect to it. Could be a small activity that also could be an assessment. So when we have something called, and it could be a research based assessment also. So you give them like say 5 to 10 days of time, and then say, okay, you do your own research and come up with what you want to do. So creative form of assessments could be anything as simple as making a small poster, or probably doing a small presentation
Mm,
on a Canva. An
mm,
assessment could also be doing something locally, like for the community. Like, a child
mm,
has learned a concept, say, for example, he's learning something in science or something related to anything, and he wants to probably go and plant trees. Like,
mm,
in that itself, you see some kind of action being taken. At the end of the day, why are you teaching the child? Because you want some action to be taken, right? And it's important for kids to think globally and act locally. That is the whole crux of why we are assessing. So and also I think assessment could be, see, action could be taken at any point of time. Child is learning a particular concept, he's actually like probably finding out things, researching, coming up with some conclusion, and then that comes into some form of action. So that can be any time. So you can't really assess a child and say, okay, I think we have done this concept, and then, oh yeah, I think he's not able to grasp this concept because he has not answered these questions, right? so
mm.
so I think when you're talking about creative form of assessments, there could be so many forms, and one best form is, I think you can ask the child himself to say, how best can you explain this concept to us? In what form would you? Do you want to like have a debate, or do you want to have a discussion? Do you want to probably do a small extempore? I think you can just give, the freedom. I mean, agency comes in. I think when I say the word agency, it's about giving that autonomy to the child to decide on what basis he or she wants to be tested on. Yeah, I think you can also pitch in ideas. That would be great if, in case you agree, disagree. I think that would be a great interaction. Of course, it's a podcast, but I know it would be really good if, in case you have, your own thoughts to what I'm saying.
Yes, absolutely, ma'am. Because this is also, I mean, earlier we used to talk about education, everything, but assessment is also the fi favorite topic of mine. Because the thing is,
Right.
assessment can be, if we really want to give example, connect with the real life example. So I think those audience who will be listening to us and those who have joined, Hitchki movie is also a very good example. I think
Correct.
where the, especially that concept, when while you were, ma'am, while you were explaining that example of how we can try creative assessment forms of different forms of assessment as per the
Yeah.
student's need. So there, I think
Correct.
just example clicked of mine where the actress Rani Mukherjee, to
Correct.
explain that diagram of science, she just went to the playground and show the students that how
Yeah.
exactly,
Perfect.
the playing
Exactly.
area and how in the concepts of physics. So relating
Yes.
the concepts of physics and science and teaching maths to in real life application. I think that's
Correct.
these kind of movies and really like,
Exactly.
yeah,
Like, I think talking about practicality or giving them an immersive
exactly, ma'am.
experience, like, yeah, that is what is important. So you're
Yeah,
explaining about the digestive system. You take them to a lab and
yeah,
explain when what part is, so that, or have an immersive, like say these days you see
yes,
VR
ma'am.
headsets have come in. And if you look at
Hmm,
it, I think kids can actually, and we make them see those immersive, the
exactly.
videos, right? And they actually know and feel like, what they are and where they are and how it functions. Yeah.
Exactly. Ma'am, I think simulation, bringing the simulation in teaching, and
Yes.
apart from this, while you are connecting those concepts, because in memory also, in psychology also, we believe
Correct.
the
Yeah.
more you see learning by doing that concept, NCTE, National Curriculum for
Exactly.
Teachers
Yes.
Education,
Yes.
that basically
Yes.
focuses on learning by doing.
Learning by
And
doing.
your learning should be based on child's potential. It's not that
Correct.
the students is giving just a lecture.
I
So,
do
ma'am,
completely agree
yeah.
with you. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, so ma'am, we are having another series of questions. So that's
Yes.
really fascinating because the way you have explained, ma'am, it really shows that when assessment go beyond marks, they
Yeah.
they become a mirror of the students' growth, not just a scoreboard. So
Correct. Correct.
next question is, ma'am, like how can assessments focus more on problem solving, creativity, and collaboration instead of rote memorization?
Correct. So I think when we say exams, right, the
Hmm,
first thing that kids think of, or I think that's
hmm,
something that's inbuilt, is fear. I feel like,
hmm.
as a child, I think when I was like, told that I would be having exams, I think it's always the fear that's been
Yes,
ingrained.
yes.
And I think that is associated, and that's so much to do with the parents and the school. I think it's nothing to do with the child. It's the
Hmm,
parents
hmm,
always put that
hmm.
pressure of, oh, you have exams, you have to do well. I think this is the pressure that's been coming from like the society, and which is
Yeah.
which is kind of instilled into the child, which is not at all right, actually. So it does still exist, but at the same time, I think when you're talking about how do you, and it's very important, all these things of, collaboration,
Hmm, hmm,
right? Problem solving. So
hmm,
how, like, I think when the first thing is, I think when you're explaining a concept, how do you think a child
hmm,
can actually apply,
hmm,
right? Apply that concept.
hmm,
That is when you're helping the child actually think beyond the concept
hmm,
and
hmm,
just not write what the child is like,
hmm,
learning. So
hmm,
say, for example, you're teaching a concept of, say, algebra.
hmm.
Actually, where in, your real life you're actually using algebra? Students just learn like, x plus y
Yeah.
plus z is this, but then where do you actually like, apply
Hmm,
the concept of
hmm,
algebra? But when you tell them that,
hmm,
two oranges plus, say,
hmm,
one apple costs you this much. That's nothing
hmm,
but 2x plus y, right? Two apples,
hmm,
2x plus an orange is
hmm,
costing you this much.
hmm,
Whereas on like the say the value of
hmm,
orange, which is y. So if you know
hmm,
y, then you know apple, the cost of apple
hmm,
already. I think it's very important for the child to understand why the child is learning what the child is learning. So it's important
hmm,
to understand the why of
hmm,
whatever the child is learning. I think that helps. So we all know algebra, enjoy algebra, but if you
hmm,
ask the child, most of them, if you ask a child or any like any children,
hmm,
like for that matter, they will just say, "Oh yeah, but we know it is about
hmm.
variables. It's about this x plus y plus z. We find z."
I think,
So
ma'am,
they know.
that bookish language also be there, right? That
Yes,
whatever
yes,
the traditional method the teacher have told
correct,
them, it's not.
correct,
For example, if we really want to connect this with what exactly happens is if you ask a child of sixth or seventh standard, he
correct,
or she will answer, but in fear because that
correct.
he has been, polished in such a way that
Yeah.
conditioned in such a way that whatever
Yes,
starting from the years we know called that foundation years of the students,
correct.
which basically
Yeah,
makes the students life base. So all these
yeah,
years the students have been conditioned to learn in such a way that they will only answer whatever the teacher is telling, not as per
agreed.
their understanding.
Yes, and I think I also wanted to add one more point that
Yeah.
you were. So there's another thing, of course. I think they're also scared of making mistakes.
Yes.
But making mistakes is an opportunity for them to,
Hmm.
it's basically a foundation of success. Like if you look at it,
Hmm.
you should learn from your mistakes. And that
Hmm.
is when you are actually going a step further. So
Hmm.
schools, or say, for example, assessments for that matter, anyone for that matter, I feel we should help children embrace mistakes,
Hmm.
failures. It's okay to fail. It's
Hmm.
okay to learn from our mistakes. I think we make such a big deal in the class when the child makes a mistake and say, no, please sit down. We expect only correct answers from children. But
Hmm.
I don't think that's a right mindset, because
Yeah.
that is when you're instilling fear. That is when you're killing the child's creativity. So, the child is scared to share anything in the class. You
Hmm.
don't know what the child is actually going to share.
Hmm.
And at the end of the day, I think schools kill creativity because they don't give that platform for the
Hmm.
child to actually explore, talk, or say build.
Hmm.
Eventually it leads to all this. I think these things are very, very important.
Hmm.
It's important to celebrate little bit of failures as a class, and henceforth it comes to helping them solve problems, think critically, right?
Hmm.
Being able to adapt in an unknown situation. All these things come from there. I think it's important for the teacher to know that
Yeah.
Teacher shouldn't have an attitude of I know it all. It's
Yeah.
always important to understand that I'm learning from my child as well.
Mm,
I'm learning from my class as well. It always has to be a two-way interaction. I think that
mm,
is very important, is what I
mm,
feel. And henceforth, I think when you are building your or designing your assessments,
mm,
you should keep in mind how it is going to help them be problem solvers, critical
mm,
thinkers, right? I think giving them direct questions will not help
mm,
them
mm,
think critically, right?
mm,
So sometimes you might just ask them to create a question instead
mm,
of giving a question and asking them to
mm,
answer. You can always say, why don't you build a question on something? Sometimes, building a question itself is a good understanding of how the child has actually understood the
mm,
concept, right? So I think these are different. We are so used to ingrain how my teacher taught me, I'm going to teach the
mm.
same way. I think it's
Exactly.
just there. So I think we have to just move away from that, and there has to be a good shift. And for that, we really, as teachers, educators, there's so much for us to unlearn, relearn, and I think come back to what is happening with the current generation right now. That is something that I just wanted to add.
Ma'am, I think that just clicked me with an example of Three Idiots movie where,
Yes,
where everyone were making faces, the results were
correct.
announced, and the main
Yes,
main lead, the Amir Khan, he used to get he used to get good marks. He was a topper.
correct.
So he
Yes,
asked his professor, "So why are we making these noting down these ranks on blackboard?" Showing that for
yes,
example, if you go to a doctor and if you will
correct.
ask them, the doctor doesn't write your blood report on whether you have got A positive or something. So that just clicked me in my mind, that example, because as a
Yes,
teacher it's really absolutely. And what I would here like to add is that when a student comes to talk to a teacher that, ma'am, I want to share something. So sometimes rather than teacher should act as a friend and facilitator to that child, building,
yes,
rather than going to that hierarchy that hey,
yes,
I'm a teacher and you are a student,
yes.
and that really has widened a huge gap among them.
Absolutely, absolutely correct. I totally agree with you. I think the teacher should merely be a mentor and a facilitator rather than a information giver. Completely agree with you. Completely.
Yes, ma'am, because it's absolutely when we shift focus to application and collaboration, so we can prepare students for life, not just for the exams. So,
Yes.
ma'am, we are
And
having
and
another.
learning
Yeah.
doesn't stop at
Hmm.
one point. I We should all be lifelong learners, and there is
Yeah.
so much for me to learn even after my everyday math class. There is something that for me, and it's important for all of us to reflect on how our classes are going on. I think
Yes,
what
exactly.
happens is, if we are given the same grade every
Hmm.
year, we're so used to teaching in a particular way. I think it's important for us to take a pause, take a break, and say, okay,
Hmm.
this is something that I'm doing every year. How do you think I can be better every single day or every single year with respect to whatever I'm doing in class? I think because every year I have a set of different, set of kids who have different abilities and skills. So it's important for me to understand, and it's an inclusive class. Sometimes we have kids with special needs, like, we
Yeah.
have kids with dyslexia, we have kids with
Hmm.
autism, we have kids with
Hmm.
PhD. And how are we actually, catering to their needs? That's very
Yes.
important as well. What about their assessments? Do you think they can actually do the kind of assessment that we design for the rest of the 20 kids, right? It's very
Yeah.
important for us to understand that, there should be some
Hmm.
differentiation as well. Like, if in case 15 kids are at a lower level, can we differentiate the test? Do you think the test that we've designed is applicable for everyone? Do you think we should probably go, like, say for example, we have a kid who is not able to understand, then
Hmm.
we like simplify it for the child and make the same question simpler for the child to understand. So these are the things that are very important, and we need to pay an attention to these things. Yeah, that's something that I just wanted to add.
Ma'am, really, I mean, if in every school, if there have been teacher like you, so I don't think the parents need to make their kids admitted to another school, because that's where the inclusive education basically talks about that
Correct.
concept only, bringing everything
Yes.
to the mainstream. That's where we need to work on. I mean,
Yes.
if you're working with toppers and not ignoring the backbenchers, what's the use of teaching? As a teacher,
Correct.
you need to put in all your efforts to make them,
Exactly.
to make those kids bringing to the, here the concept of equity also applies. What, as a teacher, what role you are playing? So that's really very
Correct.
important. And ma'am, you have really fabricated that in a very nice manner. So ma'am, we are
Yeah.
having another series of questions as well.
Sure. Yeah.
So how can alternative assessment reduce the exam stress and help students enjoy learning rather than fear the evaluation?
Okay, I think we already discussed this in our topic, but I think I'll just probably reinforce or reiterate.
Yeah.
I think it's just the fear that is instilled by, the community more than the child, right? I think it's the
Hmm.
school who has instilled the fear, or probably it's the parents or the teachers who has instilled this fear. Otherwise, I don't think our kids would ever be like, if you make learning enjoyable, like, if you're
Yeah.
doing something in class that's the kid is enjoying, I don't think you would be like, scared to
Hmm.
get tested on what he's learning, right? So if I'm enjoying what I'm learning, I don't think I will ever be scared of, what I've learned and what I would want to probably express. And the best way to actually check if a child has learned concept, I think you can just ask him or her to explain it to someone else. So only if I know it better, I can explain it to someone else, right? So I think that is also one good form of actually assessing a child. And when you're talking about, say, how do these other assessments help, in not instilling
Hmm.
that fear? Because you're giving that child that space to kind of explore and also work on what the child wants, right? And the teacher also looking at the child's needs. Right here, you're
Hmm.
just saying that, okay, I'm going to give you this, you please better answer these questions. Apart saying that is one thing. And other thing, okay, these are the options. You have three, four options and choose what you would want to do. Do you want to like say build a probably city with a Lego, or you want to like say design a classroom with a shoebox? Do you want to do that, or do you want to probably just design a poster to create some awareness on the topics that we have actually discussed in class? I think the kid would be very excited to choose one of these three topics rather than saying, okay, I want to answer these questions. I think it's very important. When we are doing this, this comes with real life application. So if you're how are you going to actually apply it in real life? So what's the whole point in learning something that if you don't know how you're able to connect, any concept to, like, say for example, I think given any concept, say for example, if you're talking about natural resources, renewable resources, non-renewable resources, it's important, you can connect it with the current affairs right now. Okay, so of course, you're what is a renewable resource, right? What is a non-renewable? So if in case it's a renewable resource, how are we using it? How are we not using it, right? Do you think, say, water, is it a renewable or a non-renewable? Why is it a renewable resource, right? And then are we shortage of water in certain areas? Why? Then we are kind of linking it to people and places where there is no water. And also people get to empathize, kids get to empathize, show some pictures where actually
Hmm.
there's actually dearth of water, right? And kids try to understand, oh, we are so privileged, we are so grateful to have all this
Hmm.
with us, whereas there are people who actually don't have water to drink, water to wash their clothes, right? So all
Hmm.
these things, I think it should, when I say that, these assessments should be creative in terms of helping the child think,
Hmm.
like, what is it that I am doing from what I'm learning, right? Is it that, the child has learned about renewable and non-renewable and thought about, oh, how I can recycle water? That could
Hmm.
be a best example, right? You're
Yeah.
learning about water, and the child has actually come up with, how do I recycle, water? So
Hmm.
that's the best example. Like, you see that the child is connecting it
Hmm.
to the local community there, right? He's also thinking globally and he's acting locally. I think
Yeah.
these are the important things that we need to focus on when we are actually discussing about instilling fear in assessments rather than just like and creating these assessments. And I think you should just give a choice for the kids. For us, of course, we do have schools do design their assessments, but at Indus, we design in a particular way where the child is seen that, some questions are like, facts. You have to answer and you have
Yeah.
to know them. Some questions are, we have criterion level based questions, 1 to 2, 3
Hmm.
to 4, 5 to 6, 7 to 8. And when it comes to 7 to 8, it's clearly application based, right? And how you're applying to the real world. That is
Hmm.
something that we need. And I think that should be the main
Well,
focus.
ma'am,
That's something.
I'm also absolutely agree to the point because what exactly happens is we have been told about the Bloom's taxonomy and all the six
Correct.
domains that we include understanding, knowledge, remembering,
Exactly.
all these six
Yes.
concepts while making the assessment, everything is being noted down. But in the in the ease of making syllabus very fast and completing that syllabus, we forget that assessment should be child based, not a
Yeah,
teacher based, because he is the main
exactly.
center of education. And in education area, what exactly we believe, if a student fail, the whole system fails. It's not that okay, the student needs to modify, it's the teacher who needs to modify and adapt according to the child's needs. So that is
True.
where we all need to work.
Should be
Those
child-centric.
exactly,
Definitely,
ma'am.
definitely. Yeah.
So, ma'am, with this, we are having a next question. So, like, and ma'am, that's whatever you said, that's really true, because reducing fear and stress is key to unlocking the, genuine curiosity and joy in learning.
Yes, can I just add something? I think I
Yes, ma'am.
also just want to add,
Yes,
parents play a very important role in all this, right? I
ma'am.
think when you are trying to kind of, focus on skills
Hmm,
like resilience, adaptability,
hmm,
and say empathy at school,
hmm,
it's
hmm,
important for parents to reinforce these skills at home.
yeah,
Right, at the other end, if in case your school is doing this and the parents at home are saying, oh no, it's important for you to get grades and marks, and this is very important. I think there the child is actually struggling and getting sandwiched between the school and probably what the parents are doing. I think the because these days parents just want marks and grades. I think they're very, very like, mark oriented, and
hmm,
they go with the chalk and talk method, and then they're so used to it. But these days things have become so different in this AI world. It is
hmm,
very important for the parents to understand that the skills that are far more important are the skills like adaptability, empathy, and probably resilience. They need to learn how to bounce back from failures, because these days kids are so much into media. There's so much exposure to social media that if they don't get one, like, they're so depressed. It depresses them, like, so kids have become so vulnerable for that matter. And these things are very, very important. I think another important factor that reminds me is it's the well-being of the students is also important. So parents have to give time, and they are the co-mentors in this process of actually taking care of the children, apart from just being parents and asking them to get marks. I think it's important for them to be counselors, and
yeah,
all the teachers have to be counselors unless and until they know the child in the class, right?
hmm,
If in case a child is going through something, how do you expect a child to like actually learn something, right? He is
yeah,
carrying so much of emotional baggage. The child will not understand whatever you're doing with
hmm,
him, because there is something going on. So I think it's important for the parents to pitch in all of these, and it's absolutely necessary for the parents. It's a partnership. It
hmm.
is a partnership, and I think it's important for them to be it's not like a sleeping partner also. It has to be like an active partner in the whole process.
Yes, ma'am, you have really fabricated that with collaboration of teachers, parents, and everyone. So, my humble request to the all parents, please note this important point, as ma'am already mentioned, because the parents who must be listening to our podcast, they must all have also been really noting this special tip. And if the time wouldn't have been the foundation, we would have continued this series more. So, ma'am, with this, we come towards the end of this series. I would really like to, before we close today's episode, I have a quick announcements for all the attendees. Everyone who joined us for the podcast will be receiving a certificate of participation, because it's in Connaissance Specialists. It's a way of appreciating your time, engagement, and commitment to learning. So, so before we wrap up today's episode, would really like to mention about internship, ma'am, profile building, because Connaissance specialists also believe in teaching students, preparing students for life skills. It includes
Yes.
internship with member of parliament, research internship, and legal education as well. Because in all these areas, Connaissance have been working tirelessly since more than 4 to 5 years in shaping lives of the students. So this is not about getting admissions to the school, it's about building students for life. Because where if we will prepare the students for life a skill, they will it will remain for a longer duration of time. So that's what where because this is not just after school activity. And so, so if thank you once again. I would really like to say a token of thanks to ma'am, Dr. Rishi Mishra sir, and my dear friend Kritika, all team members, those who have joined us, all our lovely listeners, those who will be listening to us on YouTube as well, and to all those people, those who have joined in. Thank you for making this such a insightful and informative webinar. And ma'am, as a team members from on behalf of Connaissance Specialist, we are really humbled to have you on.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you and all the
Thank
very best.
you. Thank you
Thank
very much for the lovely session, ma'am. And really, we got to hear about realistic examples and the way the IB schools really work and implement and ingrain those reasoning attributes in their students. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. And ma'am, we are
Thank
really
you. Thank
looking
you once
forward
again.
to all our lovely listeners who will be listening to us. Please subscribe our YouTube channel, LinkedIn profile as well, and our Insta channel also. Insta channel name is Connaissance Career, because there only on these all social media platforms only we'll be updating you for another these exciting podcasts. And ma'am, and as a team we are really excited for another podcast series with you, ma'am. Looking forward to hearing back
Sure,
from you.
definitely. I
Thank you
think
so
we'll
much, ma'am.
collaborate. Thank you so
It
much.
was
Thank
really an
you.
honor.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Bye bye.